Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm so happy you're with us today. Oh, my dear friends, I often hear now from agents, I don't know why, but they seem to think I'm going to interview their clients, except by now we have so many wonderful guests on our love list that we just can't wait to have back and frankly, I don't have any time to read new books anyway. So at this point, I pretty much never take new people. I know anyway what you're going to like, and most of this stuff you wouldn't like. It's too weird. And Seek Reality listeners email me now almost daily and say, hey, when are you going to have Mikey back or Peter Wright or this or that? And sometimes they're like the new people that I've had every once in a while, and I love that. But most of all, the people they request most often are people like Dr. Craig Hogan, and I love having him, frankly, best of all. We've just been having a little love fest conversation before we got going. Our dear friend Craig is with us again for the 46th time, believe it or not. But that's about right, since we're in our 11th year of doing Seek Reality podcasts. And Craig has been with us regularly every 3 or 4 months since we began back in June of 2013. He was our very first guest back then, and he had just published Your Eternal Self a few years before. That's how I first found him. I read that book and I was so thrilled with it that I invited him to come and speak in Austin. And doesn't that feel like a long time ago now? He and I hit it off and we started working together, putting on conferences, and then we founded together Seek Reality Online, which we've discovered was that was the future because it's very inefficient to spend a whole year, really. We would put on, after a year of working hard, put on a conference and draw in maybe 400 or 500 people. It's hard to get the truth out that way, one person at a time. But we did it. But now we were just talking about how many people he has, thousands of people who come and watch his wonderful YouTubes. He does the best YouTubes on earth. And we're getting the word out much more efficiently now. Of all the world's leading experts on the afterlife, Craig Hogan is the leading expert, and his books on the topic are the go-to resources on the subject of the afterlife. They're wonderful books on how it works, how it happens, and why it's wonderful and it's great to look forward to, although we've got work to do a little while before we get there. His books, for example, are reasons for what happens to you in your life and in your afterlife, and answers to life's enduring questions from science discoveries and afterlife revelations. They're two terrific books by Craig. And when people sometimes will ask me, what's the difference between Craig Hogan's books and your books? And I always just tell them this: Craig's books use footnotes. They do. But the books themselves, even if you don't like the footnotes, they're wonderful to read. Oh, my dear beloved Craig, welcome back. It's great to have you with us again.
It's a delight to be here. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a wonderful time like we always do when we get
We
together.
always do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Craig, let's just talk. You were telling me about some of the things you're doing now and what you're working on now. So just plunge in. Tell us whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, what we're doing now is focusing on helping people to understand what we know now that humankind has never known. So we're discovering things now, much the same way that science is discovering things like quantum mechanics and discovering that the universe is expanding and all of these things that were coming to revelations within the last 100 years. And so now we're also coming to the revelations about the afterlife, about what happens at the end of this life. And we know now, we have the literature, it's out there. And so what we're trying to do is to get it out to people. People need to understand what it is that we know. And so if we could transfer it, if we could take it out of our heads and put it into their heads, if there was some way of doing that, that would be ideal. So what I'm doing now is I'm focusing most recently on helping people to communicate with their loved ones living in the afterlife. We know now how to do it. It's a very simple process. There are many ways of doing it. We have psychotherapists who sit with their clients in their office, put them into a state of mind in which they have an afterlife connection with the person for whom they're grieving. So in grief counseling now isn't involved in trying to help people to overcome their grief. it's helping them to reunite. It's helping them to have a continuing bond with their loved one living in the afterlife. And after that, then they can sit down and talk with them anytime they want. And so the psychotherapists are doing that now, and methods are up to 98% successful. So we're doing that. We're helping people to get to the psychotherapists. So we're doing that. And we're also developing methods of having their own afterlife communication so that they can do it themselves sitting in their living room or when they're waiting in the doctor's office. Anytime that they want to, they can just relax into it, have an afterlife communication, enjoy that experience of speaking to their loved one who is living in the life after this life. And so then that is a simple process they can learn. And that's what we're working on right now. I'm working on a YouTube that should be out within a day or two with the instructions on how to do that.
Okay, now do you see why I love this man? Just just this is how he spends his days, helping people who have tremendous grief. I hear from people just about every day who say, "Oh, please email me back, Roberta. I have such grief, I can't even stand it anymore." And here is this man who spends his blissful days helping people so deeply in grief to end their grief forever. So what you just told me is that there are ways, Craig, for psychotherapists to help people to be in communication constantly with their loved ones. Talk about
Yeah,
that. That's boggling.
it's
Talk about
phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. When I first I actually I co-authored books with the two psychotherapists who are doing this work now. And each one of them had different methods. And when I first met with the first psychotherapist, his name was Alan Botkin. He was a psychotherapist at the VA hospital in North Chicago, Illinois. And I met with Alan. He showed me how he was doing it, and he actually demonstrated. He had me go through the process, and it was just mind blowing that people could sit in a psychotherapist's office. They can put them into a state of mind using EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and put them into a state of mind in which they just close their eyes. Psychotherapist is not doing anything, just sitting there. They close their eyes. They have a communication with their loved one. They open their eyes and tell the psychotherapist what happened. Psychotherapist does not lead them. The psychotherapist just puts them into a state of mind in which it happens. And so when Al and I did it, then Al was sure he was going to make millions of dollars off of it. And I was skeptical, of course, because I know what the climate's like. People are reticent to learn things about the afterlife because there's still so much ignorance in the world, so much
Oh,
teaching
yes.
that we people still have fear of death. And there's no reason to fear that transition. It's just a normal transition, like going from childhood into adolescence or adolescence into adulthood.
Yeah.
Just a normal, everyday, natural occurrence. And so then we did produce the book, and he did start training the psychotherapists. And so there are hundreds of them around the world who are doing this work. And what we're doing now is we're trying to help people to understand that the fact that is that they can sit down themselves and have the same experience. They don't have to have a psychotherapist. They can do it anywhere, anytime. And once they start to do that, then they have regular conversations with their loved ones living in the afterlife. And that's uplifting. It's uplifting to me to
Oh,
experience that.
yes.
Yeah, to
But I think too, it
have
isn't.
people send an email and say, this has changed my life forever. I
Oh,
no longer fear that what's going to happen at the end of my life. I know where my loved one is, and we're keeping contact.
I know that he or she is fine. That's the
Hmm.
part
They're
that's so
fine.
powerful. People worry about the people that have gone ahead, and I just tell them, don't worry. He or she is just, they're way more fine than you are because
Hmm.
you're going to go get in a car. You could end up with a lot of pain if there's an accident and so on and so forth. But they don't have any worries at all. Their body is indestructible. They're going to go out and ride around on an astral motorcycle, and they don't even care because nothing can possibly harm them. They're going to ride down on where Mikey Morgan still does his ski boarding or whatever he does on,
Hmm.
the, on an astral mountain, and he says it's great. I can be even better than Shaun White, who I guess is very good at it, because you can't get hurt. It's impossible. It's all so great. But I think one reason that people can't make money teaching this stuff and the why the soul phone didn't work is you're not supposed to make money doing this. You're supposed to do it out of love. If your whole objective, as yours is, as mine is to teach out of love, yeah, you're going to get to teach just fine. That's the thing about this work. We do it out of love and out of joy. And aren't you noticing that that's a whole lot better? The teaching is a lot more successful if
Yeah, so
that's
much
your
more so.
motivation.
Yeah, because we're working with teams on the other side. We're not doing this alone.
No, no, that's right.
We
Exactly
have
right.
teams on the other side that are dedicated to this work. They're dedicated to all of the methods. They're dedicated to instrumental transcommunication. They're working with Sonia Rinaldi in Brazil and helping people to record the
Who
voices
does this from
of their
love and out of
loved ones.
joy.
Yeah,
Exactly. And she does a heck
and
of a job.
she does a
Completely.
wonderful job, and she's a pioneer. And the teams on the other side are working with us. They're diligently working with us. And we have teams on the other side that include various people from other dimensions that are on the teams. And they're intent upon helping us to get through this time when we're still in a crucible. We still, the earth looks like it's in turmoil.
Yes,
They're trying to help us to get through this. And the way that they're doing that is one person at a time. Everything is individual.
exactly.
So they're helping us then to help other people one person at a time. And so that's how we spread the word. But the facts are there, the knowledge is there. We just help to help people understand it.
Yes. But the only way that it works is that if we're doing it out of love and doing it out of joy and doing it so that we can empower people to be free of all the fear that has held humankind back for all eternity, really, up until now. And now is when the transformation is happening, and we are getting to watch it happen, Craig. And that is, to me, the most joy there is.
Yeah, and we're involved in it. That's exciting.
Yes,
That
yes, we're helping to make it
we
happen.
chose to come into this stage in life's evolution and in the development of life, and we chose to come here. And the reason we chose to come here is because we knew we were going to be able to help. And
Yes,
so we are now fulfilling what we had planned before our lives began.
yes,
And that planning engaged us in helping other people to understand, to grow, to become more wise about life and the afterlife, and to communicate with their loved ones. They're anxious to communicate. They're tapping us on the shoulder and saying, "Please turn around and say hi to me." And the people are just ignoring that. They're thinking like, "Oh, that's just my imagination. That couldn't be Fred. He didn't do that. He didn't give me that
it is
message."
so that is such a wonderful point.
Hmm.
People will say, people, how can I put this in the way that it sounds to me, how stupid it sounds? Well, it did sound like his voice, and that's something he would have said. And it even there even was the smell of pipe smoke in the room. Just his sound smelled like his pipe smoke, but I just couldn't believe that really was my dad. What more can he do?
Yeah,
So that there he was. It's
that's
so
it. That's
foolish.
it.
People are foolish.
Yeah, and they're doing it. They're contacting us. They're contacting us continually. We are always in contact with them. Not necessarily our loved ones all the time. We're in contact with our guides, with our
Yes,
guardian angel. They are continually in contact with us. They're in contact with our soul, which is the part of the higher self that understands what we're going through. We're in contact all the time, and all we have to do is open up to it, to allow
yes,
it to come into our lives, to help to motivate us and help to guide us into the directions that we can go. And then our loved ones come into our lives regularly. When we're having a celebration, they know that they don't celebrate
yes. And
birthdays.
they're so excited about it
They're so
too. They
excited
act
about
like
coming in.
children.
There's a new
Yes,
wedding, or there's a celebration. They're standing among us because they are engaged with us. They're part of what we're doing. They have not left. There is no loss. You can't say I lost my loved one. They're not lost. They're right here. They're with us when we're having those celebrations. Otherwise, they're going on with their lives. It's like they're going on to graduate school and now they're engaged in their studies, but they still love us and they still come back to visit
yes.
us.
Yes,
And
and they
so
love
then
us
we,
so much. The love can, because we can't see them, but they can see us.
yes.
That's the thing that people don't get.
Hmm. Yeah.
They can see us, and there are new technologies there. They don't understand that technology advances for them as it advances for us.
Mhm.
I was visiting my mother, and who, she's been there for quite a while now, but she was showing me that they have a screen on a wall, which is like a TV, but they normally cover it. Normally it looks like a picture, but the screen can show them us on Earth
Mm.
in some detail, so they can look in on the things that are going on with us, and they watch those things. And actually, there was some event in your life that your loved ones were watching, and my mother showed me your loved ones watching some big event in your life. I don't remember. This was some years ago, so I don't remember what it was now. But they're so excited about this. Oh, look, this is happening for Craig, and they were all excited about it.
Mhm.
Big deal these things are that in our lives that our loved ones are getting to see. Isn't this wonderful?
Yeah, it is wonderful. And they're also talking about what we're doing, what you and I are doing. So what
Yes.
they have said to me, I think through Suzanne Wilson, that I had gotten a message that they congregate, they get together, and they have people who explain what's going on Earth now, what are the developments,
Yes.
and one of the things that she said that they do is that they are telling them what you and I are doing, what we're doing in this effort. So they're discussing it on the other side. They're watching what we're doing, but they will come to us anytime we want them to come. All we have to do is ask them. They're only a thought away. They're not too busy. It's not like they have to go on with their eternal lives, and we shouldn't hold them back by asking them to come and speak to us because they're
But
anxious
we
to
are
do that.
very
So what
important.
they'll do is, yeah, it's just like ringing the phone, and all we have to do is pick it up, and they are anxious to communicate with us. So all we have
They
to do is
they
follow
love
through and do
they
it.
love being part of our lives. And this isn't just Craig and me. This is everybody's life. Your relatives there and friends and loved ones there care so much about what you are doing in your life right now. It's just so wonderful to know that family goes on, love relationships continue. Just so beautiful to know.
They're in a different form. It's a different relationship, but it is a fulfilling, full relationship.
And an eternal
So an
relationship.
eternal relationship, yeah. And people can enjoy that relationship right now. The people on the other side who are coming to us, they know it, they understand it, they feel it.
Yes.
And all we have to do is engage in it. And then we can have that same feeling, that same love, that same understanding. And it's just a matter of turning around so that we're right now looking forward and we're forging ahead and we're barging through life and all we have to do is stop for a minute and wait and there they'll be there right in front of us. All we have to do is look for it and accept what it is that's coming to us. And so then we teach that. That's what I'm focusing on now, teaching people how they can have their own afterlife communications anytime they want. It's very possible. It's very easy to do. We just have to teach them how to do it.
And if you may be wondering if you watch us, well, is there something I'm supposed to be doing? What should I be doing now? All you have to do is ask the question, and your guides are ready to help you
Mhm.
find the answer to that question. Just think the question clearly before you go to sleep. Just think, to my spirit guides, is there something I should be doing now? Ask the question clearly in your mind, and then look for the first answer that comes to mind when you wake up in the morning. And the answer may well be there for you, but don't expect it the first time you ask the question. Ask it clearly, go to sleep, wake up in the morning. If it's not clear enough, just ask it again the next night. That question will be answered if you're patient. It doesn't come as a shout, it comes as a whisper. Nobody shouts, everybody is very respectful of us,
Mhm.
but the question will be answered.
Yeah, and we can communicate in the same way. So if you want to sit down and you can just close your eyes for a moment and think about that person you'd like to communicate with on the other side and just enjoy the images, enjoy the pictures, enjoy what comes to you, and then go ahead and just ask a question. When you do that, then the first notion of a response is their response to you. It comes immediately after the question
First
or
one,
while you're
yes.
asking the question because they know what you're going to be asking. So immediately you'll get a response. That first notion of what you get is their response. And if people can get used to accepting what it is that comes, then they can have a fulfilling communication. It's easy to have. It's just a matter of sitting and relaxing, asking a question or making a statement. And the first feeling, the first notion of a response that comes immediately, that is them. And what we're doing is we're teaching people how to accept that. It's difficult for people because they're thinking that it must be my imagination. What happens is
Yes.
we're getting the thoughts and the feelings that they are thinking with us. They're actually bringing them into our mind, and people are accustomed to having that private part of their mind where they think and feel and image things and remember things. That's a private part of their mind. They never ever in their entire lives have shared that with anybody else, and now they are. They're sharing that with that person who's in the life after this life. And then since it comes into that space, it feels like it's their imagination. They say, oh, that's just my imagination. But it's only because we're using the same space, the same thinking, feeling space.
Yes, they don't realize that there's nothing really private. They don't get
No,
that part yet.
no. And it comes to them. And so if they can just get accustomed to when that notion comes to them, it is them speaking from the other side. Now, the reason that we know that is because it's not something you would think. So you wouldn't have come up with a dialogue. You wouldn't have gone on to the next words in the dialogue
Yeah.
in the same way that you get them, that they come to you. And so then you become accustomed to that. As you do this, the answers come very quickly, immediately after you said something. And when people get used to
Sometimes they
doing
even
that,
come
they
before
can
you
have a
ask
full
the question.
dialogue. Yeah.
Yes. When you think the question immediately, sometimes there's the answer as you're thinking the question
Yeah.
because there's no time there. So sometimes it even gets a little bit mixed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I recommend to people if they want to try it is to go into a daydream. And there is a fellow named Phil G who made a procedure he called coffee time. And in coffee time, what you do is you get 2 cups of coffee, or it can be any other drink, and you put one on the table in front of you and one on in front of a chair that's across from you on the table. And in coffee time, you just start to have a dialogue. Phil G describes. Just start to have a dialogue, just start to talk with them. And as you have a dialogue with them, the first notions of things that come to you after you say something is their response. And people are doing this and they're trying it and they're realizing that they can have a communication with their loved one living in the life after this life. You just have to start the dialogue and make the dialogue happen, and then they will respond. They will engage in you. And as far as whether they're going to be available or not, they're always available. So when we think about them, they always come. If you sit down with a mental medium and they say, well, I just can't get through to them for some reason, they must not be available. That's not true. They're always available. If a medium can't get through to them, it's because they're not getting the messages. So then, anytime that you ask your loved one to come to you, they will come to you immediately. There's no question about it. And if it doesn't seem like they're coming to you, it's only because you're not picking up the phone. Because they are ringing. They're there, and all you have to do is pick up the phone and answer.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. There's sometimes, 25 years ago, when I was being a pest to my loved ones, fewer and fewer times they would answer the phone, but it was my fault because I was being a pest to them and I kept asking the same question. So fewer and fewer times they would answer. And finally, it was when I met my spirit guide, he made it clear to me that I was the one who was being a pest because they had already answered all my questions. And that was basically the wrong way for me to handle it. I should just have been available to them. They answered my questions, and that was that. They went on with their lives at that point. So, we have to kind of be respectful of their needing to live their lives too. So try to be entertaining to your loved ones, to try to, have a conversation that they're going to enjoy too. I mean, remember, old Uncle Stan was a little bit of a curmudgeon. He's still a curmudgeon today, but a loving one now. He's a different guy, but the same guy too. But it's wonderful to know that all the people you love are still there and they still love you. And the only difference is that they get it now. All the things they were afraid of, they're not afraid of now. All the things they didn't understand, they understand now. So you can have wonderful, wonderful relationships with these people that are beautiful now. And that's the part that it took me a while to really get when I was young and naive and stupid. And you aren't young and naive and stupid. You are wise and you are beautiful and you can have these great relationships. And are you going to write a book about all of these different ways? Or is it all going to be on YouTube? How are you going to get this information to the world?
It's going to be on YouTube's, and primarily because it really is much more dramatic when we can demonstrate it. We can show what it is that people can go through. And you don't get so much of that in a book, but we will have more YouTubes about how to connect. We right now have the YouTubes that prove the afterlife is a reality, that there's no question about it. We've got all the evidence. We have those YouTubes out right now, and people can look at those on seekreality.com. And so we know that that's true. So now what I'm doing is focusing on YouTubes that are going to help people to make their own connections. And they can do it. All they have to do is sit down and enjoy the experience and have a daydream, and don't worry about whether it's them, because they are in that space in your mind where you normally think. And that is them when they come through to you. They will tell you things that you would not have thought of. They will say things in ways you wouldn't have thought of them being said. And after a while, you'll have enough of those that you'll know for certain, with certainty, that they're coming through to you. So what I'm doing is now I'm focusing on the YouTubes. I think it's a better way of helping people to understand.
But it's all grouped that way on seekreality.com. All they need to do is there's an easy way for them to find all those YouTubes there.
Yeah, what they can do is there are lists of the latest articles and the latest YouTubes, and we recommend that they get onto the website or onto the YouTube page, and on the YouTube page they can look at all of the YouTubes. So all they have to do is go to one of the YouTubes, and you'll see the option to be able to click and go into the YouTube page, and then you'll see a list of all of them that are there available to you.
Great. That's
Mhm.
great. Because this is a whole world of information about how to connect with your loved ones. You don't ever need to grieve because everybody you ever loved who seems to be lost to you is just around the corner. They've just gone behind a little curtain. That's it. And they're still with us. That's the most amazing thing. When I really got that, it was incredible to me. All those people that I had loved are not gone at all.
Yeah, it's life-changing. And as people have these afterlife communications, the most profound afterlife communication that I've ever had is with a psychotherapist. And it was with Rochelle Wright, who developed her method, which is called repair and reattachment psychotherapy. And she, as a demonstration of it, took me into a session. And when I went into that session, this is so dramatic because you actually have the images of people coming to you. You see them, you can hear them, you can
So,
touch
no,
them,
sorry,
hug
please
them.
set the scene here because I knew Rochelle. So
Yeah.
she had gone ahead, and how long was this after she had actually made her transition?
I no, I haven't connected with Rochelle since she made her transition.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
But she took you with
this is
her on
when
a
she
trip.
was yeah, this is when she was still on Earth, and we were co-authoring the book together.
Okay.
So
All right. So she
that's
took you
when,
with her on a trip. Okay.
yeah. So she put me into the state of mind in which I had my afterlife communication. And my parents came through. They came through as young
Okay.
people. They came through as in their 20s or 30s. They came in and they talked to me about how much they loved me, and my grandparents came through and they talked about the fact that they saw that I was so distraught when they had transitioned
How old were
and
they?
yeah, then I asked what my team would say to me. So I know that there are teams that are working with each one of us on the other side. And so I asked them what would the team say? What do they have to say? And so immediately I had the image of a long table and there was people sitting on either side, and they were looking joyfully at me, and there was an easel at the end of the table, and on the
Oh,
easel there was rather like a paper, and on it was a diagram. And what they said to me very clearly was, the plan is in place, just follow the plan.
oh,
And
isn't
there
that
were
wonderful?
obviously things on the easel I couldn't read what they were, but that's where the plan was. And so this was a profound experience. Anybody can have this experience with a psychotherapist. You just had to find one who's trained
Wow.
in doing
Wow.
either induced after death communication, which is the one I do with Al Botkin, or this repair and reattachment psychotherapy, which is with Rochelle Wright. And all the information about these is on our afterlifeinstitute.org website. So the methods, we have the methods and the people who are doing them. We have a woman now who has continued the work, and she is doing the work by having it over Zoom, which is a wonderful way of doing it. So she's doing the same procedure, but anybody can have it from anywhere in the world. Her name is Dr. Jane Bisler. She's an Ohio State certified psychotherapist, and she puts people into the state of mind while they're on Zoom with her from wherever they are. And she puts them into that state of mind, and they have that afterlife communication. And then she teaches them how to do it themselves. So it's a wonderful, wonderful procedure that she has, that she's engaging in. She's sharing it with people, and she has many people who are trained now to help other people do it. So she's got other psychotherapists who are engaged in it. So we've got these methods. We know people can communicate. We just have to get them to the right method, and they just have to sit down and do it, and then realize
They
the
have to
fact that
accept that it's possible.
that
That's
it's
the
possible.
start.
Yeah, yeah.
They have to first believe it can happen.
Hmm.
And then as it happens, they have to say, okay, this is happening. That's the hard part because people just, and unless they won't believe in the elephant unless the elephant walks right up to them, hits them in the face with its trunk and steps on their foot. They will not believe in it otherwise. I don't understand why that's true, but it's true.
There's so
The
much
toes
ignorance.
have to break.
Yeah, there's so much ignorance in the world today that it is still, well, the large segments of the world have no idea about the afterlife and afterlife communication. Since I've been doing the YouTubes, then there are comments on the YouTubes, and some of the comments on the YouTubes have been really insightful for me. They have taught me how much ignorance there is.
It's
That people say,
incredible.
oh, this is hogwash, or this guy's crazy, or those kinds of comments. And there are so many of them from people who just don't have any clue and are not open to it. They don't want to believe that it's true. They believe that this is not true because that seems to be the culture. The culture says afterlife, there is no such thing. When you're dead,
Well,
you're
they're
dead. And
frightened of it
yeah, they're
in
frightened
some
of it.
way.
Yeah,
I guess.
and they're not willing to open their eyes and look at it. And even if they look at one single YouTube, then there may be something in it that, for instance, Leslie Flint. So I have the Leslie Flint sessions, and Leslie Flint was a direct voice medium in the 20th century. He would sit in a room in the dark, and an ectoplasmic voice box would form on his shoulder. And the voice box is just like our vocal mechanism. And out of the voice box then would come the voices of the people in the afterlife. And the way that they described it in the afterlife is they said they projected their thoughts into the box, is what they called it, the box. And it's just their thoughts. They're not actually speaking from the afterlife. It's their thoughts that come into the box. They are then articulated by the voice box. And so then I've had people who listen to the voices and say, well, well, that they've got a British accent, and I don't know that that's the right accent, and we don't believe that this person is really speaking. And they say, oh, we can hear it breathing, and so it must be an individual who's making it up, and all of these efforts to indicate that the fact that the idea that it is not true, that somehow Flint is making this up or somebody's making this up, they're very skeptical and not willing to look further to say, well, let me listen to some more of these and let me look at the tests that have been done. Flint was one of the most tested mediums ever. And if you
Right.
just look at that, look at the evidence, then they'll realize it's true, but they're not willing to look at the evidence. It's the same as when Galileo had his telescope. He was looking at the moons in Jupiter, and he was looking at the phases that Venus had, and the craters on the moon. And he was telling the scientists and the clergymen at the time, just look through my telescope, you'll see that these are true. The Earth is not the center of the universe. There is a sun, and we then are revolving around the sun. And they wouldn't look through the telescope, and that's where we are today. Many people just won't look at the evidence, and if they looked at it, they'd be overwhelmed. It is something that they cannot deny. Once they've looked at the evidence, it is so profound that they will understand the fact that we continue to live after our bodies die. Our loved ones are there. They can communicate with us.
My Thomas was Thomas Jefferson in a previous lifetime, and I've listened to the Leslie Flint Thomas Jefferson recording, and
Mhm.
he said, "That's my voice," and I said, "Well, I thought so." But some people say, "No, that wasn't his voice." We say, "Yeah, that was my voice. That's how I sounded."
Yeah, and actually so that it isn't there are speaking as though they were speaking in front of a microphone, even though the words are that clear coming out of the ectoplasmic voice box.
He said, to me, it just sounds like an old Virginian, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, and
it
and
was
so
him
they're
in
very,
old
very
age.
clear. But at the same time, you have to realize that these are their thought projections into the box, so they are not literally
What I
speaking.
think is interesting is that I had, it was very hard for me to become convinced that Thomas Jefferson, when he was alive, was not the father of the Hemmings children. And I am
Mhm.
convinced now. But to convince me of it, my guide, it took me to meet with Thomas Jefferson in the afterlife, and they were two different people.
Mm.
Slightly, Thomas Jefferson, my guide, was a different person from Thomas Jefferson, the afterlife spirit. And to me, that's interesting all by itself for
Mhm.
people like you and me who are students of the afterlife. They were two different beings.
Mhm.
And slightly, their
Yeah,
spirits were very similar. My guide is slightly more advanced spiritually.
yeah, yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah,
That's
and
interesting. This is interesting stuff. Don't you love what we do? I mean,
yeah,
what we
yeah,
do is interesting, scholarly stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful. We know now more than humanity has ever known about the
Yeah.
afterlife, about afterlife communication. And the reason we're knowing it now, the reason we're getting the information is because there is a shift happening. There will be changes in the next decades in people's understanding. And so generally, humankind is going to be in a position in which they're going to have the knowledge that we continue to live after the body dies.
But we certainly do have a wonderful field of study, you and I, and there's a lot for us to learn and a lot of growth happening all around us now.
Mm.
And I love that. I truly do love that. And what I'm
Yeah.
what I'm discovering is that we are almost out of time. I'm so sorry about that because I could just go on doing this forever. Oh. Anyway, well, what else do I want to? I could go on talking to you all day. I mean, we have so much fun talking.
Yeah, I just
How
want
would you
people to
sum this
realize the
up? If
fact.
we were going to say this is what you all will take away from today, what would we say to
Yeah,
everyone?
and that your loved one is available to you. It's like they are standing behind you, and you just have to turn around and look at them. And you can do it. You can communicate with them. You can have communications. They don't necessarily come in words. They can come in feelings and sentiments. And so then at the very least, you can always have that sense of presence. You can realize that they're with you and you can communicate with them, just talk to them. And just say whatever's on your mind. You don't have to worry about whether you're getting the response. Eventually, you'll get the idea. You'll have the responses come to you. They'll overwhelm you. So the responses are going to come. They're not going to come in words that are spoken. They're going to come in whole messages, the whole knowledge of what it is that they're saying. And I just want people to attempt to communicate. They're anxious to communicate, and it's just a matter of doing it. And once you do it, then you will come into an understanding of how it happens, and it will become second nature to you. You will do it anywhere you are, driving in the car, sitting in the physician's office, anywhere you are. You can hear
Exactly.
this communication.
Yes, beautifully said, dear. That is just beautifully said. Once you start communicating with people who are not in bodies, you begin to realize these people are all around you. It becomes something that is just second nature to you. It adds a dimension to your life that you wish you had entered sooner because it so much enriches your life. It is just, it's phenomenal beyond, I think, and you would agree, beyond anything you could possibly add to your life. It adds a whole new dimension of color, light, sound, depth, joy to what is otherwise colorless and soundless and almost meaningless. It makes your life, it just sets everything to music and safety, and it makes life wonderful to be able to communicate like this.
Yeah, you have a continuing relationship. So the new relationship is a wonderful, exciting, uplifting relationship that you can have. You just have to start it. You just have to say a
Just
few
have to
words.
begin it a little
Just
bit, and then you want
begin.
more and more and more and more and more, then you
Yeah,
become
right,
greedy for
right.
how much more is possible. It's
Yeah, that's it.
wonderful.
That's it. It will grow. It will grow for you.
It's really wonderful. Oh, my dear. Well, I just sort of have to say a little bit to everyone here, and then I'll come back and visit with you a little bit afterwards. I'd become very greedy to do that with people I especially love. But once again, my beloved friends, we've come to the end of our time together, and this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm so happy you were with us today for this very special edition. Please never forget, you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you know that for certain, because it is really true, it's going to change everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be August Goforth, who is a physical and a mental medium, and he'll be with us just for the second time, but he visited it with us again for the first time, I think in 2016. So this is going to be kind of special for me. I haven't seen him in a long time. It's really, it's been known since the turn of the 20th century and before that you could do physical mediumship, but we have kind of lost touch with this. So this is going to be fascinating for me to have this conversation, and I think you're going to enjoy it too. Please be sure to join us next week. And this week we've been talking with our wonderful great friend Craig Hogan, who's been with us for the 46th time since Seek Realities, but this is our 11th year, and we began with Craig, and Craig comes back faithfully maybe 4 times every year. He's the world's really leading expert on what really happens at and after death. And he can tell you that it's all good news. It's maybe unusual news in some cases, but it's all good news. We all live in the mind and in the heart of a truly beneficent and beautiful God. Craig and I eventually founded seekreality.com, where we put together all the best evidence that exists on earth about death and the afterlife. And Craig still runs and makes the most of that wonderful website. And so if you go there and join, you can bask in all the truth about what really, really is true about eternity, which is where we spend most of our time. And we have a new website that we're still really only starting. It's called teachingsbyjesus.com, and it's our best resource for all the beautiful divine truths that are brought to us now in perfect love by the greatest teacher of all, Master Jesus. Now it really is his turn. Christianity, the religion that was created by the Roman Emperor Constantine and not by Jesus, is finally dying. So the genuine teachings of Jesus can at last truly come alive for us all. As you know, my own nonfiction books are, well, Liberating Jesus, My Thomas, The Fun of Dying, and so on and so forth, but I don't have time to talk about them. So they're all on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and so forth. And if you want to talk about any of my books, or if you want to talk to me about anything, you can always contact me through the green contact block on robertagrimes.com. Just please be sure if you email me to send me your correct email address, because I do answer all my emails. And all of the more than 550 past episodes of Seek Reality are available wherever audio podcasts can be found. And you also can see the new video episodes. Oh, by the way, don't you love Craig's background? We told him he looks perfect, and that's the best background. Please just always use that one. We just love the way he looks on that. You can see all the new video episodes each week on Roku or Fire Sticks, YouTube, and elsewhere. Meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing, never forgetting that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all in this entire universe, you in particular, are infinitely, eternally, and always perfectly loved.